Hello, on this week of Altered States, with myself, Harry Williams, and Josh Gape. We've got an old friend of ours, Jamie Harkin. Jamie works with dogs, so we deep dive into that. Also, on Ape Nutrition's website, there's a discount code AS10. That's site-wide, so if you're after beef organ, CBD or MCT oil, and all the manner of nutritious goodies, please take a look. Hope you enjoy the episode, guys. Cheers.
Welcome to Altered States, Jamie Harkin. How's it going, mate?
Good, man. How you boys?
Good, thanks, mate. Yeah, real good.
Wholesome weekend. Right, so for everyone listening, we wanted to get Jamie on. Jamie's a really old friend of mine and Harry's that we met at uni, and he's got quite an interesting background, interesting story. So when we first met you, you were at Loughborough studying marketing, but you were studying design. Yeah. But you were also working at a salvage yard that your dad owned in London, on the outskirts of London.
Yeah.
And then, well, my first memory of coming to the salvage yard was just like being met by this gigantic German Shepherd as I came through the door.
Two of them,
yeah, exactly. And you've been on like quite a cool journey because obviously you you just love dogs, and then when you finished uni, you went into more of a corporate environment.
Cut my hair, sold my soul, and put a suit on.
Yeah, exactly.
to be blunt about it.
Yeah, and then you've come kind of full circle, right, and started working with dogs again. So it'd be cool for you to just kind of break down that journey for people and sort of start talking about like where your dog, because for me it's always fascinating hearing you talk about the dogs, but there's also like so much I've learned from you, not only in terms of like how to deal with dogs, but it's just like there's so many crossover lessons just to life.
Yeah, mate, 100%. I think we can go into this deeper later on, but I think most of my work that I do when I deal with reactive dogs, as much as I'm giving methods for this is how you address this issue with a dog, a lot of it is almost like a bit more advice on like mindset and how to keep your head straight for the owner. I'm coaching people in a lot of instances way more than I'm training the dog. So yeah, I think you are right, is that there's so many crossovers, so many lessons to be learned that indirectly you learn from a dog trying to bite you, which is interesting. But no, to go back on like how we met. So my fiance lived next door to Harry. And Harry invited her to a rugby game, which I went along with. Met Harry, and I think it was that night or sometime after Mayweather was boxing, and we were boxing fans. So I have to admit I ditched Soph for the evening and was round at Harry's watching the boxing when I was supposed to be.
Victor Ortiz.
Yeah.
Victor Ortiz, yeah.
Getting that cheap shot.
Very controversial win that for money.
Yeah. So that's how we met, and then Harry introduced me slowly to you boys. I think we met, on a drunken night outside the Union once.
Yeah, I can actually remember that night. Yeah, we went. Yeah.
How was it?
Yeah.
I just remember we finished up the night. We all went back to yours for a bit, and I was like, I hadn't really met you or Soph, and we ended up just getting into a chat and just speaking for ages, and it was like felt like I'd known you for years, sort of thing.
Yeah. So all of us are so different from those lads outside Hey You on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I was like, I think you boys remember. I was like quite. I suppose I had a bit of a hippiness to me back then.
You had the long hair, of course, didn't you?
I had the long hair and
that Jesus look down.
A few braids and beads and.
Yeah, had it all in front of you then, eh? Well, I hadn't quite beaten you down at that point. Like, quite the bit. And yeah, I was studying industrial design and came out and was like looking at my prospects of like what to do with design, and I really fell out of love with design. And having had our own space at uni with Soph and I, because we'd been together for a long time, we were together for the whole of uni.
and then moving back and having to move in with parents,
Mm-hmm.
my priorities changed to Soph and I need space. So, going to sales, going to property, I cut my hair off, put a suit on, got a job as an estate agent, and just put my head down for 3 years until we got the mortgage. And I remember like the day that we exchanged on our flat, I like walked into the toilet in the office and I looked at myself and I was like, who the hell are you? Like, I don't know who you, like once like the goal had been achieved, I was like, what is going on here? This is not you. And I'd grown up, the year I was born, my dad started a salvage yard, like an architectural antique salvage yard. So he had everything and anything in there. It was quite interesting, I grew up with a father who'd really like gone out on a limb and done his own thing against everyone else's advice, and like really made a success of it. And I'd always like been in and out on my weekends and holidays, like working for him. And decided, packed in the estate agency and went and worked with my dad for about a year or 18. Well, with my dad and my mum. My mum had then branched out and opened a shop alongside it.
So sorry for people that don't know, what is a salvage yard?
But to put it simply, it's selling second-hand things of interest. So like unique objects or curiosities. Dad started mainly with architectural salvage, so like lots of antique fireplaces, doors, light fittings, but he took in everything and anything that was interesting and cool, he would take in. So it almost went very much like a prop house in many ways.
Where'd you get offered that kind of stuff?
He to begin was out and about looking for it, sourcing it, but then it got to the point where he was there for 26 years. He was so well established that when people were looking for a place to like shift their stuff, they knew that they could go down to this yard and do a deal with do a deal with old Declan. And you got to think these were in the days before eBay and Gumtree and whatever, so there weren't the platforms that there are now. They weren't as accessible for people to clear out space. So a lot of stuff that would have been brought to Dad was junk, but some of it was like pure gems.
Well, I remember you had the Camden lock horses at one point, didn't you? Like those horses that used to come out that big brick wall. Was it a bridge?
Yeah. So they were like brats. So the stables Camden Market stables, the markets, they used to be a stables, and when they were refurbished back in, I don't know, sometime like around 2010, 2012, so they had this artist create these like life-size statues of bronze horses, and Dad got a phone call and was like, look, Camden Market's like been sold, we're getting rid of that. The nightclubs close at 3 a.m. You have to turn up between 3 and 6 and take it out when like no one's there.
Was it all above board, this?
I'd like to think so, mate.
Doesn't sound very...
I believe it was, but
Cash and hand job.
You'll have to edit that bit out.
Okay, we'll edit that in post.
No, but yeah, it was super interesting. So me, my dad, my brother Francie, just like headed down with a forklift and just like with a monkey wrench, start like undoing these horses from like up on the side of the bridge, and took them down and had them in the yard.
How heavy were they?
Bloody heavy, man. They were like hundreds of kilos each.
So they weren't hollowed out. They were
they were hollow, but they were bronze statues.
Okay.
So the ones on the wall were wood with some sort of metal plating, but it was the actual statues that were heavy. So we were getting like scaffold bars and putting them through the horses and like having to jimmy them and like wiggle them along and get them onto the back.
So once you got those in the yard, like how do you just like waiting for a customer, because that's quite an odd request, right? So they're those horses.
Yeah, just what I was looking for, a pair of life-sized iron horses.
Do you know what? Something with my old man is he was never, if he got something like that, he didn't care if he sold it or not, because when you're driving down Willesden High Road and you've got like a 20-foot bronze statue of two horses like pulling a cart with a man on the back, it was the best marketing that my dad could get for the yard. So he sold one set for like pretty good money. Like I'm pretty sure like he made all his money back on one of the sets, say. And then the second guy came along. I think that set went to either Malaysia or Surrey, and then the second one went to the other one. But the guy came in and was like offering my dad. My dad was like, I honestly don't care if they go. Like everyone knows this place because of them. It was incredible. And then like you seen the truck that we had.
Yeah,
that was sick. That truck.
that's actually being refurbished. He's going to keep it on the farm, but that again, it turned the yard into a landmark. So yeah, it was a place of the weird and wonderful.
Honestly, it's one of the best shops I've ever been in, and it sounds weird. It's just like obviously like a salvage yard, just full of like random bits and pieces, like Buddha statues. But I remember when I first rocked up, and there was that. So you had that glass, like big glass window on the front. And it was just full to the brim with clocks, like covering every single spot. I was like, this is like a mad place. And then as you walk in, it's all kind of like higgledy-piggledy and on different levels.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of stuff in there. Like you said, the truck was there when I went. So like, this is mad. You could literally spend hours just wandering around and looking at stuff.
Yeah. So another crazy thing with Dad as well is people would come in and they would say, oh, we're looking for, this kind of a mechanism off a door lock from this era. And Dad would be like, he'd like run off and like dip his hand into like a pile of stuff and like pull it out.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know? And like me and him clashed a lot when I started working with him because I'm very organised, and a salvage yard is anything but organised. But it was like his organised chaos. So I'd like thought I was being clever putting everything together, and he like completely lost where everything was.
Mess up his system.
Yeah, when it was a mess,
system.
he knew where everything was. Better man than I was, I'll tell you that. I couldn't do it. He wrecked my head trying to keep up with that place.
Mate, it's impressive as well, because so when I moved into my first flat in London, like I was looking for
the bench.
Yeah, like a bench, like like a breakfast bar, and I was like looking on IKEA and stuff, and they all look the same, and then I was thinking, I need something, and I just text you, and you were like, yeah, I think we might have something down the yard, and your dad turned up a few days later with a railway sleeper, and then this big metal frame, and just like knocked it together inside the flat and like drilled it into the floor, and everyone that comes into the flat is like, where do you get this from?
My old man fit that, didn't he?
Yeah, Dad delivered it. And
then
I think
your dad, because your dad knocked the wall down.
Yeah. And they opened the flat.
But mate, because it's interesting. Cause I've always wondered this, but I've never really asked you. So obviously, when we first met, you had the 2 dogs at the salvage yard.
Yeah.
Were they your dad's dogs?
So they were family. So growing up, we always. Oh well, from as far as I can remember, we always had shepherds. I don't really remember a time in my life where we didn't have shepherds. The reason being is Dad had tried like all types of security in the yard, and it always seemed to fail. Whereas a good German shepherd usually does the trick. So he would have them as I suppose like yard dogs, guard dogs. But they were very much like brought home as well and spent time, and we would take them out walking. They were great dogs. They weren't just savages. But around that time, we had Sabre and Millie at the time, a male and female. And Sabre was so this is what we grew up with shepherds, loved dogs, but Sabre was the first time where I got like a real working dog, and that's when it just for me like clicked. So they were family dogs, but from the age of about 14, 15, we got a new pup called Murphy. And I kind of took that on as, I wanted to be the one to train him, and, made so many mistakes with him and whatever. And he
So when you say training, just like the simple stuff, like teaching him to sit, stay, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's supposed to come when you call him, although he never ever did. But it was my pride and joy. I was like a teenage boy, like walking around with this big black German Shepherd, loved him. Sadly, he got poisoned at the yard. He was the one that got killed. And then we had Millie left.
Poisoned by...
people breaking into the yard. Someone tried to break in. Dad came into the yard one day, and Murphy was like running around, like giving it the big and like all excited. Because like, if someone tries to break in and the dogs have done the business, then they're like proper excited with them, happy with themselves.
Yeah.
And he goes over, and there was like a torn up pillow. So I think these blokes had tried to break in and thought, the dog isn't going to do much, we'll bring a pillow. And Murphy was about it. So I don't know what way it kind of finished up, but the next day when they came in, Dad's like calling, Murphy's like,
well, they came in with a pillow.
You see it a lot. They'll literally come in. They'll just like, the dog's just like, he's all
and scarpered when the pillow was savaged.
Yeah. When he was like, come on then, lads. Like the pillow ain't gonna cut it. But the next day came in, and he was like,
sorry.
Pillow
ain't gonna cut. A real offensive weapon.
Yeah.
pillow.
Yeah. Tell you what you do not want in a fight with a German Shepherd is a pillow as defence. It's not going to work.
It doesn't make a very good shield against anyone. Never mind German Shepherd.
No. Those lads found out the hard way. But the next day he came in and Murphy was like could barely move. And by the time he drove him to the vets, he died sadly. And the vet had said he'd been poisoned with food.
Oh mate, that must have been hard. How old were you?
It was one of the first times I met you.
Yeah, man. It was
at a night out. I mean, like, yeah, I remember you were like, and obviously so like really cut up.
Yeah,
about
man. I feel nowhere about saying like it absolutely broke my heart, mate.
Yeah.
Like made me like that did like made me question my identity quite a bit as well, because I really did identify with this dog, and we'd just gone to uni as well. So it was like you're in freshers, you're all nervous, you're really going through an identity crisis, trying to figure out who the hell you are. And then my mum phones me and was like, look, Murphy's ill, your dad's on the way to the vets with him. Phones me back, I was like, just woken up, I was like in bed with Soph, and then mum phones back and she just said like, I'm sorry, and I was just like, yeah, like broke down. Like it was hard, man, it was real hard.
I bet. Because that's just observing, having known you quite a few years now, and like obviously we'll get into this later, but you know, you're on the farm, your parents are on the farm now instead of the yard.
Yeah.
You're around animals a lot more, and it just feels like to me that you've become like either way better at dealing with it or like a bit desensitized to like the kind of the death of like, or you understand the reality of the situation.
Yeah. Do you know what I think it is as well as. I'll come back to this because I'll talk about like in order of dogs. So Murphy died, and we had Millie left, but Millie was my brother's dog. So like they were always family dogs, but you know, I was old enough, so my dad said, "Oh, here, Murphy's for you." And then when we got Millie, we got her for Daniel, and you know, straight away I'm like, "That's my brother's dog. My dog's died. I don't want anything to do with that dog." You know, it's like like sibling rivalry. I was like, my dog's better anyway. Like kind of wasn't really interested in the silliness of it. Wasn't really interested in Millie, but I was at uni at the time, so I wasn't around her, you know.
Yeah.
Came back and then got real into training with her, and then 6 weeks before I finally finished uni, we got offered an 11-month-old working shepherd who had like a bit of protection training and from over my dad's brother in Ireland. I went and picked him up and took him home, and then that's when I was like, right, I've got this young female who is super intelligent, really wants to please, but wasn't really getting the stimulation from the rest of my family training wise. So she's game to train, and then I've got this like big dominant male who was a real problem dog, and that's where I kind of got into the interest of trainers. I was like having all this fun with Millie and like doing tricks and like tightrope walking with her, and like she's just a wicked dog to play with. And then Sabre, who I loved, but he was like an absolute liability.
Yeah,
like he wasn't cool with people, he wasn't cool with dogs, he wasn't cool with like any kind of movement. So it was interesting with him. It was a bit of like a baptism by fire. Like I had to get used to, you know, dogs were no longer just like this easygoing fun thing for me, because I was like, I've actually got a very capable animal here.
He was like a tank, wasn't he? He was massive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite particular about like weights of my dogs, and like this dog at his peak was 43.5 kilos, and he was like in nick. And like, don't at me with your 50 kilo shepherds because they're all fat. Like, genuinely, like you look at.
Well, anything, that's where you draw the line as a 50 kilo shepherd.
Look, if you actually look into like the top dogs here, you take Vito. These dogs when they're in their prime, like prime working, they're like 38, 39, maybe up to 42 kilos. It's like he was on the big end, mate.
He had 5 kilos of lean body mass on top of that.
He was. You know.
I've seen it. I met him the once.
Yeah, you know that old saying. It's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. I'm like, this was a big old dog with a lot of fight in him.
Baron McGuigan said that.
Well, that's what Sabre used to do. Run around and give it the Barry McGuigan biggin.
I'll tell you, that's a weird saying. Like, I don't even.
Mate, I'm not letting that one go.
Baron McGuigan.
Giving it the Barry.
Mate, just bring you back, because a second ago you said about Millie tightrope walking. Like, there's a big leap between like teaching your dog to sit and then teaching it to slackline. Like, what was the process there? Were you like learning off YouTube, like reading books? Like, how did you?
Nah, mate. I used to like watch stuff online with Millie and like mess. Well, look, this was the beauty of the salvage yard, was you had the most ridiculous props like lying around to play with. But to simplify, like Millie loved climbing, and we used to have like the most amount of fun just like wandering around the yard and like, oh, let's see if I can get her to climb this ladder. Let's see if I can get her to climb up on top of the truck. Let's see if she'll like be able to jump and land on this like narrow little pedestal. And she was wicked at it. So I started with big paint tubs, stacking them up and getting her to, you teach them a placement marker, say. And eventually that paint tub got smaller and smaller to where it was like, the size of tins of paint you get for painting like railings, like tiny little things.
Yeah.
She'd get the 2 front paws on it, and like the poor girl would literally be trying to get her back legs on. Like she was fully committed. She understood what it was. So I was like, right, now we can go on to railings. Now we can go on to this, that, and the other. And I was in the park one day, and these like proper hippies were like slacklining, and like I was just looking at them, and I jokingly said, I was like, can the dog have a go? And they were like, oh, nah, brother. Like she's never gonna do it, but like, go on then. I told her to get up, and she got up and was like wobbling. She was like looking at me like, what are we doing here then? Like me and the hippies were like, oh my God, like the dog's slacklining.
Yeah, I've actually seen videos of it. It's quite impressive. So what, do you like just point and then she like tries to do it and then you give her a treat? Like what's the...
Just a click of the finger, mate. No, for her it was always for the ball. So it was like you teach her. So I would say to her place, and it would be a big. Say like this table. I would teach her that's place, and then the table gets halved in size and it gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
She starts to understand that when you direct her onto a platform, that's what she goes on.
Yeah.
And then that platform starts to wobble or whatever. So I used to take Millie I'd get up like early in the morning and take her to parks, and we would go into like children's playgrounds where. They had seesaws, where the kids like, almost like a Go Ape thing, but like for kids, like a really small thing.
Yeah.
And I'd like teach her to walk across these.
It was like net things with like the
net
road,
things,
right?
yeah. And she was like, she'd literally be like paws out here, but just like so happy to be doing something with me. As long as the tennis ball came out at the end, she'd do it. So it was just like, well, like the world's our oyster. It was like, you look at anything, it's like, can Millie climb that? I'm like, well, give me half an hour and I bet you she can. I just like play around with it. She's like so athletic.
Do you think that's like something particular? Because there's obviously levels of intelligence to dogs, right? In terms of individual dogs, but then breeds of dogs as well.
Yeah.
Are they like German Shepherds? Maybe like collies are pretty intelligent, aren't they? Like, are there
so we think Millie actually has probably about a quarter collie in her.
Yeah.
I think my brother got shafted when he went and bought German Shepherds.
She is quite diminutive, isn't she? She's not.
She is, and she herds like crazy. So. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But then again, my brother was about 13, so he didn't know what he was buying. He was like, he got
swindled.
Four legs, a tail, and teeth. He was like, yeah, I'll take her.
She's a lovely dog, man.
She's wicked, man. She is.
Mate, that's so fascinating. So it's literally just like, it's as basic as that. You teach them a trick and then you just refine.
Yeah. Like you take the bark, for example. If you want to teach a dog to bark, is at first you just want to, frustrate them so that they make noise. And that could be a yap or an aggressive bark. And then, you reward them for noise, and then you start to refine it. You mark the behavior you're looking for. And eventually it comes down to you only get rewarded when, you bare your teeth, you give me a bark and you go crazy. But with Millie, I used to say, speak. And she'd,
yeah.
She'd like, she'd mirror your energy. Or if you said like, Millie, speak, then, she'd like stamp the ground and like give it the Barry.
But when you and your brother were given the dogs when they were like young,
yeah,
it wasn't as if, had there ever anyone in your family ever taught you how to do it, or you kind of like doing it on the hoof and learning the trade yourself?
Yeah, a bit of both. Like my parents obviously know how to handle dogs, but not to any like, not at any great capacity. But I think we rehomed a couple of dogs. One called Jade, which was when I was real young, and I only really remember her through the stories that my dad tells. And she was like a real fearful dog. And then through, I think, my dad's like real calm, stoic energy, he brought her around to where he says she was one of the best guard dogs he ever had. But like stable, like reliable guard dogs, not just like a savage that will just bite anything, but just a good dog.
Yeah.
And I remember her coming home and like being on the bed with her and cuddling up with her, but then at the same time, like no one went near the yard when she was there. And then we also got, somehow we got a dog that didn't pass for police training. My dad could handle her well, and she was class.
Are these German Shepherds as well?
Yeah, always German Shepherds. And so yeah, it was more like observing it and then picking up and not putting my own spin on it.
Yeah, of course.
So you've got kind of done some groundwork with Millie, and you've got like a real good understanding of how to train a dog, and that's kind of happened. It's like self-taught almost.
Yeah.
You go off to uni. like you said before, then you go into a state agency to like buy your flat and stuff.
Yeah.
And then at what point, like obviously you said buying the flat was a trigger for you to leave. Did you know straight away you were like, right, I want to go into working with dogs? Or was it just like, I want to change, I don't know what it is?
No, I always knew I wanted to work with animals, you know, more broadly, but dogs in particular. But I never had the bottle to like actually pursue it. It was always like a hobby, and because I got my fix of it enough, because even when I was doing the estate agency, I would get up in the morning and go out, you know. Well, with Sabre, I had to, because he was dangerous. He was like really reactive to other dogs. You know, I was like walking him at 5:30 in the morning. It was the only time I could get him out. So I'd get my like hour and a half fix of training in the morning.
Yeah.
And because I was getting that, I don't think I felt the pressure to, you know, really chase the dream right now, because I was getting to live it in the mornings. But it was, certainly in the back of my mind, and it was always like, oh, at some point I'll do it, you know, when I've done this, when I've earned that money, when I've got this much in savings. So I went back and worked with my old pair for about a year and helped them wind down the yard, close up in London and move out this way. And they had 6 months between exchanging and selling. And I was spending that 6 months with my mum. It's like the first time I'd ever spent time with them where they weren't like working non-stop. And it just came about one day. They just said to me, they were like, look, you really like the dogs. And I was doing it part-time. I forget to mention that. I was helping people part-time in the evenings with their dogs. And it came about, they were just like, look, you're between jobs now. Like, when are you going to be in this position again? Why don't you just give it a go? It was March 2019. Why don't you just give it a go? See if you can kind of run with it. And, you know, touch wood, like 2 and a bit years later, I'm doing well with it. You know, I'm still going. So it was never the plan right now to do, but it was just, why don't you give it a go? And I'm still 2.5 years in giving it a go, I suppose.
You're kind of smashing it, mate. I mean, pretty good.
Well,
just quickly, so going back to the estate agency.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point when you were enjoying doing it? Or did you always see it as like a stopgap to lead on to other things?
Yeah, I certainly... Well, here's the thing. I did enjoy it, but it did also change like who I was. I'm a massive believer in you are the company you keep. And I went into that industry. You know, like, estate agents get given a bad rap, and there is a lot of reason for it, but there's also a lot of good people in there. And when I was like in that world, I was very aware of the snakes, basically, the typical estate agent.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll never become like them. Mm-hmm. And while I still can wholeheartedly say I never did, I certainly started to speak a bit like them. I started, like, you boys know me, I started looking at Mercedes, leasing them. I started looking at flashy watches. I've owned 2 watches in my life, Casios. I'm not interested in them. But you know, you start to buy in. So while I say like there was the thrill of it, when I look back now, I'm like, if I was having those experiences now, it wouldn't do anything for me. But I probably can only say that having, you know, gone through it all.
Yeah, there's a golden thread there.
When I left it, I was like real embarrassed for a long time. I was real embarrassed to tell people that I was an estate agent. I was really resentful towards it. But now I look back, and even my own business, I attribute a lot of me being able to run my own business to what my manager at the time taught me. So you know, lessons to be learned.
Do you find, looking back, well, this is something that I noticed with like my time working in finance, is that like when I was in it, I felt like I almost had to tell myself I enjoyed it, like to be able to get through the day, sort of thing. And then as soon as I got to the point where I like was real with myself and was like, this isn't something I want to do for my life, then it went from being like difficult to like really hard to keep going.
Well, mate, like one for me is, so suits are not something that I was ever massively into, and Sophie was working at Ted Baker at the time, so I had access to, you know, pretty hefty discounts on some quite nice suits, and that was it for me. It was like I was like in the thick of it, telling myself, like I want to have the nicer suits and this, and look sharp and suave and whatever. And while I still like that, as I say, when that exchange came, I like looked at myself and I felt well dressed and happy. I was just like, what the hell is going on? This isn't you. And it was like
light bulb moment kind of
thing. And again, it's not that I look back and say that there's anything wrong with that. For a long time, that was conducive to what I was trying to do. But you know, I'd clocked that level of the game, and I was ready to move on.
Did you? So it's virtually handed your notice in as soon as you had enough of the deposit on the flat.
No, not long after, because of the way commission works. So I ended up staying.
To collect that commission, and then goes the notice.
Yeah. No point having a flat if you've got no furniture in it, mate.
I did that for a while, actually.
Yeah, well, mate, we were sat on garden furniture for like the first 12 weeks. But yeah, so I ended up staying for like 3. Yeah, so we exchanged in July and I finished in November, so about a few months.
Nice.
A few months.
And you've never looked back, like you've never thought, never regretted, like it's been like you're 100% happy with the decision, you never...
Yeah.
Because that's a common thread I find.
So.
Like obviously, the other Jamie Tompkins was down this weekend, and he's done a similar thing where he stepped away from like a really secure job and gone like freelance and like following his dream. And you never really hear. Well, I've not heard the story from anyone that I know personally that's like taken a risk and stepped away from the safety of their job to do something like follow their passion. And then turn around and say, "Oh, I regretted it," and gone back.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is if they do it at the right time. I think this is why I say the dog training wasn't necessarily the plan, because if I'd have come out of uni and gone into it, I don't think I would be finding the success that I am. I don't think I would have been ready for it, and I think that my passion probably could have been stubbed out a little bit. Whereas having to go through and learn some lessons that maybe you didn't want to learn, improve your skills that you might have not necessarily thought were applicable, but ultimately do something that you don't want to do. When you then come out the far side and you're now doing something you want to do, it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
No, but again, as I say, I can only say that having gone through that.
Yeah.
Makes you grateful for what you.
When you're working.
Sure, right?
Yeah, and when you're working on a commission type basis, like you're literally you get paid for what you do. So while my parents instilled that in me, I was brought along to work, although I was probably annoying my family more than actually helping working. Work was something that you just do. You get after it and you get to enjoy it if you work hard. Working in the estate agency like massively ingrained that in me as well. So I came out and I was like getting after it with the dogs, and I was like logging everything, keeping my spreadsheets, like I was on the ball with everything, and I have to thank my time in estate agency for that. Although you would never think that they just on the face of it would link.
Also with like estate agency, I think a lot of people it's kind of one of those careers, estate agency and recruitment's quite similar, where people maybe they're not sure what they want to do and they think, I'll just go into this because it's some way I can earn commission, I can earn money fairly quickly. But both of those jobs, there's a lot of like interaction. Recruitment, you're picking up the phone all the time, you're going to take clients out, and with estate agency obviously you're showing houses all the time, so it teaches you sales and people skills, and they're like invaluable whatever you go, like, unless you want to become a monk and go live in a cave, like they're invaluable any other job.
Not just yet.
No,
mate, I think okay, to give like a prime example of that, so I started in lettings and then moved over into sales, and the area that I worked in was a very family driven area, so a lot of people would be selling, they'd move the kids' school, and it was very stressful around. You can imagine being a parent, trying to get your kid into a school, buying a house at the same time, you're running jobs. Like, they were very, very stressed out clients. And I kind of got a handle on dealing with people like that. And now when I go into a home where they've got an 18-month-old shepherd that, has either attacked a person, attacked a dog, or turned around and attacked the owner, I've said it to you both before, it's not uncommon for my clients to like burst into tears in our sessions. Like really like, they're in a bad way because they've gone and got this dog because they want to have like a new family member and like
good intentions.
They want to go hiking, take it to the pub, and love it, and it can turn into a nightmare. And again, as you say, learning those people skills through estate agency in high stress situations, the sale of a house has afforded me quite a lot when I come into a home where people are having a bit of a breakdown because the dog has had a breakdown and got the teeth out.
Do you think in some regard, like, when people say that thing like, dogs look like their owners, but also in terms of like personality of the dog, you know, your like you said, your dad got that mad dog, and you know, we know your dad quite well, and he's like just like a super chill guy, and he's managed to calm the dog down. Do you find that the dogs kind of like mirror the personality of the owner?
Well, so this was why I say a baptism by fire with Sabre, the male shepherd I had, is I would say dealing with my anger is like my biggest character flaw. I was like very angry as a teenager, and especially around uni, like end of uni, I was a very angry bloke. And Sabre basically, but dogs, they mirror your energy. So I would take him out, and I started getting somewhere with him, like calming him down. I could have him around dogs, I could let him off the lead, I could trust him a bit around people and whatever. But then there would be days where I'd like pick up an email in the morning, pick up my phone in the morning to check an email before I went out on a cycle with him, and like, I don't know, someone's pulled out of a deal and I'm like missing out on money, I'd be in a mood. And I could have gone weeks where Sabre was good as gold, and I'd walk in and I don't know, was I like, pedaling on my bike a little harder than I normally would have been, or like breathing a little bit harder, and he would just fire up and like just go crazy at a dog out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And through a lot of reflection, where weeks or it would have been more days and weeks would go by where it would be blessed with him, and then he'd fire up, and every single time I started to notice it was when I was in a bad mood, the dog would just kick off.
Yeah.
Was it quite subtle though, the bad mood? You weren't outwardly doing anything, it was just how you were feeling inside.
Well, if you'd have asked me at the time, I would have said no, but that's what I say. I was probably like just breathing a bit, acting a bit different. Mate, dogs are such acute, they're so acutely aware of your body language. It
could be like some kind of like telepathy as well, like in a weird way.
Yeah, I do.
Because imagine if you weren't even physically showing anything, but it can just pick up on some kind of vibration or something that you're emitting, which you don't even know you're emitting.
Yeah, but like, okay, even right now, like I could say to you, have you noticed what I've just done? And you would say nothing, but I've lifted my shoulders, and I can guarantee when I step into a session with a client and we first see that dog, when they've got a reactive dog, everyone does this. And it's like, while you don't notice the slightest move, the dogs are so acutely aware that they'll pick up on that. I do also, I'm a firm believer.
What does the lifting of the shoulder signify?
Tension. You're anxious.
Yeah,
when you're nervous, you do this, and what does, it's not exactly transferable, but what does a dog do when it sees another dog and it wants to size them up? It postures and leans in, makes itself look bigger. I also do believe they communicate on like an energetic level, but to go back to the point, I started to realize that it was me who was leading him. Like I was putting that energy down the leash, as they say. So I 100% agree with that. Is you can get, it doesn't mean that a dog's bad or a handler's bad. Sometimes just their energies don't align.
Yeah.
If you get a very anxious person and you put them on the end of the lead with a very anxious dog, it's probably not going to go well. Whereas, I've learned to take the lead of dogs that are quite anxious, and I'm quite calm because I'm very aware of like what energy I'm putting down, and I'll walk in and an owner can say like, oh my god, they've never done that, and the moment the lead goes back to them, the dog is like that. It's like a trigger's been pulled and the dog's gone crazy.
But how do you deal with that then? Because obviously, okay, so you could get an anxious dog, you take it away, it picks up on your energy, it calms down. Maybe you can, teach it some of the stuff like we've said, like sit, etc. But then you hand it back over to the owner, but not just again start mirroring the energy of them.
100%. So like when I'm dealing with, when I have sessions with clients, I say to them that I'm not a dog trainer, I'm a dog owner's coach, because for the most part I can guarantee that the dog is going to be okay under the right guidance.
Yeah.
Of course there's situations where like they're genuinely not, but for the most part it's the owners. So mate, a lot of my sessions include breathing exercises.
For the owner.
Yeah, well, I don't sit down with the shepherd and you're all right, come here boy, in through the nose. No.
Yeah, but
you're doing guided breathing sessions for the dog owners.
Yeah, mate. That's almost like, depending on the owner, it's almost like a non-negotiable for me. Like I won't take a step forward into because man, you're dealing with big animals, and like redirected bites can happen quite easily. So
what do you mean redirected bites?
Okay, so I've got a dog, and my dog is reactive to this dog over here, and if you put it in a situation where you don't handle it properly, it's not uncommon for the dog to turn around without realizing what they're doing and redirecting that aggression and biting you.
Okay.
So like I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna try and work with your dog, but I can't do 90% of the work and you do 10% of the work. I need to be doing I need to be doing a little bit more than you. I'm coming in as the professional.
60-40.
51-49. I think literally I do just ahead of you, but unless you're willing to do almost the same amount, you know, you're gonna set yourself and the dog up for frustration and failure, and either get yourself, me, another dog, or another person bit. So they have to be cool. So like, there was this one pretty reactive, fear reactive, big male German Shepherd that I was working with, and his owner, that was almost solely what we did together, was go and stand in the park in the presence of dogs, and I was like, don't look at the dog, just look at me and breathe. And we'd go through breathing exercises, and we could spend an hour in a park just walking around, and we might go through 5 or 6 cycles of breathing exercises. And you just seen the dog, you know, the hackles would be up, and then he'd start looking at the owner, he'd look at the owner, and then she's just, you know, like, say you're the dog, she's like looking away, like, oh, don't look. And eventually she calms down, and you just seen the dog set. I'm like, right, okay, so we just got, you know, a few points on our scoreboard, let's move on, next interaction.
Yeah.
Well, you can imagine how that would happen, right? So say like you got a dog owner who'd had like, you know, like a shepherd or like a more like a working dog, something that's naturally a bit more aggressive and stuff.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they take it to the park. They're a bit nervous first time. It like goes at another dog, and then every time they're taking it to the park, every time another dog starts approaching, the owner's getting a bit anxious. The dog's picking up on that energy. It's like they know it's a high energy situation.
Yeah.
And then maybe that neural pathway is ingrained in the dog in terms of like, oh, well, when I see another dog, I go at it, and then it just starts happening time and time again. So it's like in the same way a human would try and retrain their like neural pathways to break a bad habit. You need to do the same thing with the dog, right?
100%, man. And that the thing is it's a lot. Well, yeah, of course, it's a lot easier to do it with a dog than it is with a person, because the layers don't go as deep, or there aren't as many layers. Sorry. But you know, like we okay. So primarily we're communicating verbally, and then below that is body language, and then, you know, we've got, you know, other layers of our communication with a dog. And with animals as a whole, in my experience, you know, I think energetically is where they start. It's probably where we start as well, but we're just not as in tune with it as they are.
Definitely.
Energetically, and definitely with dogs is body language, and then verbal is like, I don't know, somewhere down there. So people make the mistake of, they have the dog and they feel anxious, you know, whether or not it's the dog's scared of a dog, or the dog gets aggressive, or he wants to chase a squirrel, he does this, and they go, oh, good boy, oh, good boy, it's okay, it's a good boy. So like we think, well, I've told him, you know, he's a good boy, life's okay, it's fine, I'll look after him. And the dog is thinking, shit, mum is freaking out here. She does it every single time this dog comes. And with dogs, it's all about creating space. So the dog fires up, and he's like, go on, like, get away, like, shows his teeth a little bit, say, like day one. So then, you know, nature rewards success. So he banks that and he goes, oh no, yeah, I got rid of that dog. And whether or not it's him being pulled away or the other dog going, he's like, if space has been created, I know what to do next time. I'll get the teeth out. And then the teeth come out, and then a bit of a growl, and then this happens. And then before you know it, it goes from like a level 1 or 2 on the aggression scale to like create that space to like that, bang, 10 out of 10, lunging, like I'll actually sink my teeth in if I can reach you. And it's just like the go-to.
Well, that, for me, like, dog owners, I think a lot of people buy dogs, and dogs have been domesticated for so long. Yeah. And obviously we've like crossbred dogs, and you've got, you know, tiny little things wandering around now and all this sort of stuff. You don't see that as a wolf. It's like, because at the origin, the dog's a wolf, right? It's gonna attack, hunt, all these things. And I remember you telling me before, one of the biggest mistakes you see people make with dogs is they throw the ball, but then when the dog brings the ball back, they don't wrestle the ball out of its mouth. And like, well, you want to break down like why that's important?
So that's I have to attribute that to one of my mentors. So probably the most profound thing I've ever learned through dogs is, you know, never in the history of dogs, never in their future will a dog go on a walk. They've never been on it's a man-made idea that we take our dogs on a walk. Dogs go out to scout their territory, they go scavenging, and they go hunting. Now we don't get to decide whether or not our dogs do those. You know, we might think, oh, we're living in Clapham, we'll go take him over the common and we're taking him for a walk. You know, and little Teddy's thinking, no, I'm going out doing one of my predatory behaviours. So that goes and, you know, manifests in whatever way. You know, your dog's sniffing around, trying to find food, or trying to chase smaller dogs and attack them, or chase a ball, or whatever it is. You know, like when they're chasing a tennis ball, it's a prey item. It's their prey drive that incites that behaviour. So you take a shepherd, say, or a bulldog. Okay, you take a Frenchie, yeah, a bulldog. You know, we can laugh at them and say, yeah, they've got little bat ears, and you know they're closer to pigs than they are dogs, like little micro pigs. But when you actually go back in through their lineage, bulldogs are these like savage dogs that we took from wolves, and were very, very stubborn, enjoyed the fight and enjoyed the kill. You know, those predatory behaviors in the cycle of the hunt. So what people do is they throw the ball, which is the chase of the hunt. So the dog goes and chases it, and the dog grabs it. And what do the dogs do? They chew and they thrash it around. Now we think, oh, he's enjoying that. That's cute, and he is enjoying it. But what he's doing is he's actually killing the prey. And if we throw the ball and we just leave him with the ball, then he goes through that cycle of the hunt himself, and he doesn't get any of that association with you leading that cycle. You know, and then eventually when he's fed up, he sits and he chows down and eats his feast. And I find that with these bully breeds with shepherds, is if you get them balls on a rope, or you get them a ring or a tug toy, is you incite the chase, you throw the toy, you like give them a few misses so they're jumping up. Then when they bite it, you give them tug of war. Now again, tug of war we think is a game, but it's the killing of the prey.
Yeah.
Now if you and I are in a different wolf pack, and I grab hold of a deer and you grab hold of my deer as well, me and you we're gonna throw down. Yeah, we're not in the same pack. We're gonna have a fight. We're not just gonna take the prey down together.
Yeah.
However, you're in my pack, so if I grab hold of the deer and you grab it, we're engaging in a predatory behavior together and acknowledging that we're in the same pack because we're doing something together.
Yeah.
And we're gonna bring it down, and then we're gonna divide the resources, tear it apart, and then eventually, once we've satisfied those predatory drives, we're gonna take off and enjoy our portion of the feast. Now, the mistake that people make is they miss out these sections of the hunt. And I've worked with so many shepherds, so many bully breeds. My Frenchie himself, if you don't go out and kill things with your dogs, with these working animals, with these working dogs, if you don't kill them, they will go and, you know, release that energy elsewhere. And it might, you know, maybe you're lucky and it's only on your sofa, or on your trainers, or on the corner of your table. But maybe it's a child, maybe it's other dogs, maybe it's squirrels.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get to decide whether or not they kill things. Me and my dogs kill things every day. We kill bite sleeves, we kill tug toys, we kill bulls on ropes, we kill everything.
It's all the same to them.
I don't think it's all the same, man. Like
Do they get more satisfaction out of killing a living creature than they do?
Yeah. And hearing the screams of something is you know, it satisfies those needs far more than a toy is going to. But you know, why do we think dogs like squeaky toys? Because it sounds like an animal in distress. You know, they enjoy that thrill. This is what they're hardwired to do.
I don't know if do you know much about like the evolution of dogs? Have all dogs descended from wolves?
Yeah, all dogs have.
So I find it so hard to, like, I completely believe you, but at the same time, when you see like Max, who we had on a few weeks ago, you know, Max he plays at Bristol, he's got 2 Chihuahuas, I think they are, like little tiny dogs. I just find it fascinating how a wolf has now been bred to such an extent that it's become one of them, you know?
Yeah, but as well, you got to look at it as like a dog is not a real animal. You know, it is a man-made thing. So through selective breeding, we've been able to take them from one thing to another, from the wolf down to the Chihuahua. Obviously, there is a lot of in between in there. But like the theories of like how dogs kind of came about, none of them have really been proven. Personally, I think that you know, each theory probably happened in multiple instances, but is that wolves started following bands of hunter-gatherers, and you know, where we would discard bones or whatever, they would follow that, and you know, make use of our waste. And then we kind of tolerated them because they would give us signals for bears and other predators, or you know, things that go bump in the night. Then there's also the theory that cubs were found and people took them on themselves and started raising them. Personally, I lean for the former, because there's been a lot of tests done where people have gone out to the wild, taken a wolf cub and tried to raise it, and then have been like chewed up, because you can't, like, in one generation remove the wild within them. So it's more like slowly we tolerated wolves being around, and if they were a bit too leery, we killed those ones off and we allowed the more timid ones to come. And eventually they became dogs that hung around.
It's just bizarre how that's happened to such an extent now that they come in all these strange like shapes, and so that is actually berserk, isn't it, when you think about that?
It is. It's insane.
But you know, you say they're man-made. There is something, and I don't have any kind of experience. I've only ever had like family dogs and stuff like that. But there is something, I don't know what it is. There's some kind of relationship between dogs and man, which is different to any other animal from my experience, from what I've had.
Yeah,
and maybe I don't know. Maybe that is partly because, in essence, man has created them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
like
why
co-evolved.
there's that some sort of link between having a dog and they wanting to have a relationship with you, and they seem incredibly sociable, and what they want to interact with humans is like their default setting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, man, man is within dogs. You know, dogs cannot exist without us. So while they're a different species, and as I say, communicate on very, very different levels than we do, there is that connection. Even if you look at our social groups, maybe there are some other examples, but I don't know of any other species that is as widely spread as man and wolves. Social species, you know, they're in all corners of the earth. You go to deserts, you go to the Arctic, you go to jungles, you go to forest, woodland, like whatever. They're everywhere, as are we. So they go toe to toe. Like a life goal of mine is I want to write a book called Understanding the Wolf in Your Home, and I'm going to open it up.
Good name.
Yeah, no, because I think you should. And like, you know, I look at my Frenchie and I'm like, yeah, you're like boggle-eyed and bat-eared, but like there is a little wolf in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But the opening passage, like I write something along the lines of like the story of man's best friend start as two social predators just keep bumping into each other no matter where they go around the world.
Yeah.
And that's what we had to, you know, there's also theories as well that have you ever seen the dolphins and the fish that work together to catch smaller fish, where the dolphins like beat their tails in the shallows they basically stir up the sand to make like a ring around the fish, and then other fish shoot in, and they're like two predators that you know, they don't share the same social group, but they unite in this hunt.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of theories that man and wolf used to do that together. You know, it's like we would you know, we're both endurance hunters. We used to like run our prey down in many instances, and we think that we would have been competing over the same resources, and again, therefore, have to tolerate certain aspects of wolf-like behaviour, but the more aggressive ones we would have eradicated. But ones, you know, if we were to go on a hunt and, you know, we're running down here and we're trying to chase down a mammoth or whatever, and the dogs are circling in and stopping them going that way, it gives us like, it encircles them so that we can throw our projectiles at them or whatever. Like, these are all theories, but I think they actually, they sound quite plausible.
Truth to them,
yeah.
And I suppose you could have like, well, if you would have joined on a hunt like that, you kind of like would have felt like, I know that it would have been like more Neanderthal style human beings, but you feel like they would have given some offcuts, you know, given some leftover, given the bones to the animals, so like almost, because it would be of value, right? Like if you can get like, oh, actually we could genuinely start to like train these in some sort of way. Like, it'd be so much value if you had wolves and another tribe didn't. Like, it would be like you're not getting jacked in the night anymore.
So you know, you're permanent like guard dogs the entire time round.
There's a book called The Invaders by Pat Shipman, and he posits that we triumphed over Neanderthals because we had wolves in tow. Like, I'm sold on that. 100%.
I wonder if the wolves would team up with humans if they could see that, like, however many thousand years in the future they're going to get turned into little shit zoos.
That was the trade-off.
Yeah, that's the trade-off. I wonder if they could do it all. If the wolf god come down and show them what their future laid, if they would do it.
You can have a bit of this mammoth humans now.
And eat them. Sorry. Earlier in the podcast, you mentioned when Murphy got poisoned that you had like an identity crisis.
Yeah.
And Sabre unfortunately died quite young.
Yeah.
And you said something similar to me a while ago. Would you mind going into that a little bit? What do you mean by that?
Now would probably be the only time I could as well, because it's literally been this summer that kind of penny dropped for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like August. Like we spent a few weekends together, and it like, you know, through a few chats, I think I kind of like ordered a lot of stuff in my mind about that. But yeah, so I came back with Came back from uni, got training with Sabre, and as most dog trainers get into the industry, like, I suppose I'm a dog trainer, how they get into an industry is they have a problem dog themselves. So not only was it like my first working dog, but I really felt I'd achieved something. Like I'd been through a lot to get him to a manageable level. And I was in the estate agency one day. Soph and I had just moved into our flat. It was the second week we were into our flat, and for those few weeks I hadn't been walking Millie and Sabre every morning. My mum and dad were taking them out, and I got a phone call from our vet. And was like, "Oh, so your dog's got a broken shin bone, a ruptured elbow, and something else." I was like, "What? What are you on about?" He was like, "Hey, we just got the scans back." And I was like, "What are you on about?" And I felt like the bloke like crumble on the other side of the phone. He's like, "Oh, your parents haven't told you." Because I was that registered as his owner, but my parents had dropped him in. They'd taken him out that day, and I forget exactly how it happened, but he had like some sort of freak accident where he jumped and turned, and Millie ran into him, and he snapped his shin bone, ruptured his elbow, and the vet was just like to us, "Look, I'm going to send it over to some specialists and see what they think." And they all came back and said, "You know, you got two options. You amputate his front leg." You know, bearing in mind this dog's life purpose was to piss off Millie, and I was like, he ain't doing that with one front leg. Or we try and do a surgery on him, but he was like, it's a pretty low chance it's going to work, and even if it does work, he'll never be running or doing anything too crazy again. It was hard, but it was a time that I look back on. I'm actually really proud of how I dealt with it, because there was like no thinking about it for me. Once the specialist and everything said that, I was like, right, I'm on my way there now. I want you to put him down straight away, like as soon as I get there. Yeah. Because with one of my dogs before, when she was ill, I begged my dad not to put her down when I was young, and I have no memory now beyond her pissing herself, not being able to walk. And I hear of her being such an incredible dog, but that's what I remember. And I've always said that when my dog can no longer be a dog, the time's gonna, like, I'm gonna say. And
loads of people do that as well. It's easier for the human and harder for the dog. But I always think that when I'm walking down the street and you see someone like walking a dog in a pushchair or something like that, it's like horrible, isn't it? It's a horrible life for him. No doubt.
Man, and that was like, when I say I was heartbroken for Murphy, like that, I'd say I was a bit more than heartbroken. That like honestly nearly broke me. Like I just moved out. I'd like, worked for years to achieve this goal of getting a flat, got the flat, and then there was this like deflation after that. But I was like, but I got my dogs, and then the dog died. I had to get put down, and it really broke me. Like I've as an adult, I've never cried like that. I was in like physical pain for days. Like I was in a really, really bad way, and I went into like an absolute identity crisis. I was like, I'm still stood here in this suit with this shit haircut, like cleaning up, trying to look corporate. My dog's gone. My one like thing that I could get out. I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I don't know who I am.
Do you think that almost helped you leave the job a little bit? Life's too short sort of thing, let's get out of here.
Maybe. It all kind of happened at once, which is why I say it kind of like broke me, because I didn't know where I was going. I knew I had my hobby. I'd achieved this big thing. I had no more apparent goal, say. And then when the dog was taken, it was just, it was real tough. Right. It really, really threw my identity like up in the air. I didn't know what was.
What you felt like you didn't know who you were without the dog, almost.
Yeah, and again, like talking about stuff that's like kind of I've gained an understanding of over this past summer is around that time for probably 18 months I had some serious social anxiety. Like, I'd be out with you lot and literally I'd like smoke bomb in the middle of the night. I'd say to Soph like, oh, I don't know what's going on, everyone's laughing at me. I'd like freak out. Like I had real bad social anxiety, and I would just like duck out. Like call an Uber, wouldn't tell Soph, like grab her, be like, we're going, get home and wake up the next morning and just feel like I had no purpose to know what was going on, and I couldn't say what was wrong with me. I was like, I'd feel like I was rushing, I was like down at times, I like felt all over the place. And it's been this summer that I've like really got my head around it. I'm like, hang on, I remember it was as soon as Sabre died and I had no purpose, I had no routine, I wasn't getting up in the morning, I wasn't doing my training. When I had Sabre, I was like, without fail, I woke up at 4:55 every morning before my alarm. I'll be on the bike, rapping along to Skepta, cycling down the Wilson High Road, 2 German Shepherds healing off lead. I was like, literally living the dream. I was so happy. And then I was like, I've got nothing here now.
Was it? Did you? Did you feel like you chained part of your identity to this this apex predator essentially?
Yeah, well, yeah, I did, and it's something that I know you shouldn't identify with things to that extent, and I learned the hard way not to do that, and it's something that I try and do even now with my dogs, because a lot of the dogs I work with I don't own, they're working dogs, and I understand that at any point they could be taken away from me. So it's something that I do battle with even now, is like I try not to identify with them, but like they are such a part of me. But at that time, that was they weren't a part of me. Like that was me. There was no division between like me and me cycling down Wilson High Road spitting Skepta with the dogs. It was like that just was me. It was like top of the CV. Was like that was my first sentence. But that was it.
Wilson High Road cycling. Rapping to Skepta, two dogs healing off lead.
Corn on the curb.
It reminds me of like one of Paul Chek's sayings as well, where he's like, if you have a dream, you don't need a nightmare. And like kind of like, although you weren't doing it for your work, you were living your dream every morning there, and all of a sudden that's taken away from you. Yeah. And that I'm sure that like played into the identity crisis. Yeah. So when you decide your parents kind of had that chat with you and you've decided, right, I'm going to become how would you term what you do now, like dog training?
I say I work with dogs, like yes I train dogs and I do bits, but my mentor, when I first started working with me, he was like, I know nothing about dogs, and I was like, God, if this bloke knows nothing, I was like, if this fella, I've come to him as a dog trainer, he's like an old school Eastern German guy, like he knows his stuff. If he knows nothing, I was like, geez, I know nothing. So I say I work with dogs. I'm a student of dog training. Yeah, okay. Is what I would say.
And so
I think I will forever be though.
Yeah, mate. Of course, like we're all students for life.
And this is it.
But so you start doing that. You start working with you stop with the estate agency. Like, how do you transition from doing that into the dog stuff? Surely you've gone from a stable income to potentially no income or little income there. Yeah. Like, what was that period like? How did you start growing the business?
So I remember I was doing it part time a little bit. So I had a nice clique of dog walkers that I used to walk with prior to Sabre. And then first day I went into the park and I seen them and I had Sabre from afar. I was like, oh, hi guys, this is my new lad. He's gonna try and kill you, but give me a little, give me a little while. I'll straighten him out and he'll be good. And after a few weeks, I got him where he was good around particular dogs and whatever. And the first one was a lady who walked in the park that I used to meet. And she said, oh, a friend of mine's got a husky and he's doing something similar. Could you help her? And the lady phoned me up. She's like, oh, I'll pay you. And I was like, oh, wow, I can make money walking dogs. Well, this is class. Like, I'll do this. I'll give this a go. Got some success with her. She recommended me. Got success with the next person. They recommended me. And then just as we were finishing up in the yard, there was this black German Shepherd female who had bitten quite a few people. And I knew her owner used to walk another dog, but never her. And he said to me, he was like, I remember your dog was like pretty savage. He's lovely now. He's like a good boy. Could you help me with my female? And that was the first time I like properly took a dog on and like had her for every day for 5 days. And it was a referral, purely a referral basis. And as I say, like, I do believe that luck is hard work and meets opportunity. But I do think I was lucky because it was just like a domino effect. It started working.
It's kind of divine as well, mate. Like, knowing you from the outside, it was like you will always end up gonna do this, and when you told us for the first time, I'm gonna step away from estate agency, I'm gonna do this full time. Yeah, I think we all knew you were just gonna smash it, like as soon as you just got your foot in the door, sort of thing.
It was a real round peg in a round hole kind of thing. Yeah. From what it looked like from the outside, it never seemed like you were truly settled doing the estate. Far from it, truly settled doing the estate agency.
Had hair gel in, brother.
That is true. I had noticed that hair gel.
Yeah.
There's no danger of that these days, is there?
Nah, definitely not.
So then, how did it kind of like progress from there? Because obviously you're doing, you're very much full time with it. You're more than full time. You're turning down work left, right, and centre now. Like, how did?
Yeah, I'm very okay. So there's what I found. What my niche turned out to be. It was I suppose forced upon me, or just no, it wasn't. It was word of mouth. Is you find with dog owners is they can be very cliquey, especially if you get something like a working line German Shepherd. Your people from will see from afar off, and they're like, oh yeah, I've got one of them, and they want to talk to people who are going through similar things. So it was, I helped this German Shepherd and that German Shepherd and this German Shepherd, and it just started going German Shepherds, and I started noticing that there's actually quite a lot of dog trainers in London. Not a lot, like there's dog trainers that out and out will not deal with German Shepherds. Any kind of Rottweilers, Malinois, they just won't deal with them because, you know, their positive only stuff somehow doesn't work. So that was like my niche was aggressive German Shepherds, and you know, it's more often than not, if you get a Shepherd, you're going to go through a period where the dog's going to revert to its aggressive behaviour. It's literally what we bred them to do. It's like on the tin. So I started working through that, and thankfully, through doing enough of that, now when people call me and they say, "Oh, little Teddy, the Bichon Frise is aggressive," I'm like, "No, thank you. I don't have to deal with anything other than what I really."
Which one is a Bichon Frise?
Oh, they're just like a little ball of fluff, little white. Usually old women walk them.
Oh yeah.
There you go. That's the
I don't know what
giveaway.
you're talking
An old woman walks it on a pink harness. So I was just like real fortunate where I kind of like, you know, there were times where I'd done any work that I could. I'd work with any breed, but I got pretty adamant on. I'm like, no, I can serve. You know, your typically working, if not protection dog breeds that people get. You know, they buy these high drive animals and wonder then why when they leave them in a family home, and they don't, you know, stimulate the dog or satisfy the drives that we've bred them to have to like the nth degree, why they turn crazy. And I'm here's the thing, I'm fortunate that, you know, I've got a lot of work, but I can honestly say now that I've like dived into the industry, if I had no work but people stopped buying German Shepherds, Malinois, Rottweilers, Cane Corsos, Presa Canaries, any of these big powerful breeds, I genuinely would take that, because I started this for the dogs. I want to do it for the dogs, and for a long time, not as much now, but for the first year to 18 months, I would leave homes like so disheartened. Like I'd like help the people, I know they're really trying, but I also know they've got 3 kids, 2 full-time jobs, they're in a home that's not suitable for a German Shepherd. They've gone and, you know, they've been very happy to tell me about how accomplished their dad, their pup's dad was in the police, and how the mum was a Salvage protection dog. And I'm like, but why did you buy it for your kids as a pet then? You know, there's a complete...
You needed a certain type of person to own that type of dog, right, really?
Yeah. Like I'm actually, you know, I haven't formulated my ideas fully on this, but I'm trying to put together some sort of idea that I'll propose in an article advocating for dog licenses. And I think that there should be levels or tiers to the licenses of what people are allowed to do. I've got like just to put it out there, a little idea I've got, which I think is quite good, is, okay, you take Harry decides, I want to get a German Shepherd, never had one before. I think in order to kind of unlock that tier of dog licensing, you should have to show me that you've gone and volunteered at a rescue centre with like similar breeds. And until you've gone in and shown me that, you know, you've put in your 10 hours of a certain level of service, you shouldn't be allowed to hold a license for one of these dogs.
Well, if you want, I'll be the test dummy for this test, because I want to own a German Shepherd at some point. So.
No, but Matt, and look, mate, I know exactly what you're like. I know you well. I know how disciplined you are. How many times have I tried talking you out of getting one? That, like, truthfully, because I know what it takes, and I'm not saying that you can't, but for the most part, I've seen people fail at it, and as much as I love the breed, they're my favourite breed. I think I would way prefer to see less of them than I would for everyone to have them. So although I say to you, don't get one, I know you will, and I know you'll look after it. But it's like my go-to thing. It's like, I want it. No, I want that. No. Go get yourself like something different.
Because it's too all-encompassing.
Because the thing is
for the normal person.
It's just they're not suitable, man. It's like, and here's why. It's not because you'll do wrong by the dog, but you've got a follow on Instagram. You've got a little tribe building under you. People will go, oh, the next thing after we go for a cold dip in the River Dart is we'll get a German Shepherd. And while you can look after yours, you know, someone who is just, they've not got that capacity about them at all will go and get it, and it you know, the cycle of suffering, keeps going.
Yeah, I think that idea about the licensing is like amazing because, you know, if I didn't, so I wanted a German Shepherd originally because my dad grew up with one, and then I met you and I was like, and then I know, you know, you're around the puppies and stuff, so like I would know the perfect person to go to be able to get one.
Yeah.
But like before getting one and you know, having known you, like I would know the amount of training I would have to go through personally before I'd get that dog.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, it's just literally like, you know, that idea of dogs for life, not for Christmas. They literally see the pictures of puppies and they're like, oh, I like the look of that. And then they buy one and the next minute they've got like an apex predator in their living room.
Yeah. They're literally wondering, why is he chewing on the child? And I'm like, what? Honestly, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff people say to me. It's, again, not uncommon for someone to say to me, I've always wanted a police dog. I'm like, but you live in a 1-bed flat on the 4th floor in like Camden in London.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, but I wanted one. I worked 12 hours a day. I'm like,
There's been a bit.
I used to want a bear when I was a child. I don't have one. Do you know, it's so irresponsible.
Yeah.
Or John Wick, that film. He's gone and got himself some Savage Malinois.
Pure rubbish, that film.
Do you know, I've never seen
one's
it.
That. No one's that hard.
Do you know what I had? I had a woman phone me up. She had a 7-month-old female Malinois. Yeah, I walked into the house and the dog just put teeth straight on my chin. Yeah, just bit me straight. And I don't mean like with the front teeth. I mean like put his mouth, my chin in its mouth.
Drew blood?
Yeah. 7 months old. I'm like, how
There's been a big uptick since last year, right, in purchasing of these dogs.
Yeah, massively.
Since people were in their houses way more.
Yeah.
People.
But this woman phoned me up and she's like, "Oh, my dog's had a go at one of my children." I'm thinking, like, God, that's horrible. Like, dogs gonna know your child. I get there and she's like, "Oh, well, it's not one of my children. It's a child that I look after. I'm a childminder." I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "But please, can you come inside? I don't want the neighbours to see that I have this dog." I'm like, "Well, this is not cool. This really is not cool." And she goes on to tell me, "Oh yeah, she's a childminder and it nipped one of her dogs." Nicked one of her children, and she also had another little dog. She told the mum that the little dog had nipped the child.
Yeah.
She actually told me, I was like, "Why?" I said to her, I was like, "Why the hell have you got this Malinois?" She's like, "Oh, well, me and my husband watched John Wick and we just thought they were incredible." I was like, "What, the one where he like goes around just killing loads of people and the dog's helping with it, and you thought that was appropriate for your child minding business?"
Are you this straight talking with them?
Mate, this is I'm in it for the dogs, man.
Yeah, of course.
I said it to you earlier. There's times I've like just transferred people about their money. I'm like, I can't be doing this. I've told people to give dogs over. I'm not. At first, I was a bit more tolerant, but now I don't know.
Would you advise that she has the dog destroyed?
No. I actually said give it to me. I'll help you. And this is another thing. As I've helped rehome quite a few of them. I'm not like just like get rid of it. I'm not that at all. But you really need to. You really need to take a look at that thing that you've got sat in the corner and understand what it is. Like, this is not a pet. You can call it a pet. It's not a pet.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very different thing.
One of the things that I really wanted to bring up with you around this whole thing, I know we've talked about it before, but it's just like obviously big interest of mine. It's like the nutrition angle around dogs. Because you see a lot of people feeding them kibble and stuff. And just in my head, I'm like, right, that dog should be eating meat,
Yeah.
Probably organ meat.
Yeah. Well, mate,
every egg.
Of course.
And on that note,
but like what? Like
my dogs do have the capsules, by the way. Like I'm not actually.
Do you break it into their food?
No, I actually have some that are a bit more whole, and I give it to them like before they've been ground up and put into the capsules.
All right, yeah.
They absolutely.
It's one of the sacks of the.
Yeah. They absolutely love it.
But
you can get them at 8nutrition.co.uk.
In terms of like what an ideal diet for a dog would be.
So dogs, they do have this enzyme that is found in their stomach which differentiates them from wolves. I forget the name of it, but it means that they can actually, or they have evolved to have some level of carbs in their diet, essentially. However, in my experience, I've worked with like almost every dog owner that I go and see, or any dog that I go and see, I talk about their weight, because all of their dogs are overweight, all of their dogs are, and whether or not that's bad nutrition or they're inactive.
Yeah.
shepherds will typically have skin issues, they have ear infections, they have inflamed paws. Frenchies are on a whole nother level. Like, we've all smelt Biggie's farts, and like everyone just thinks it's like funny that a Frenchie is like hanging with farts, and it's like that's a bit of a giveaway. It's not funny. Like, it's funny for us, not funny for the dog when they're literally like physically burning up. So what I got into about 2.5 years ago is the raw diet. Now, that being said, I've tried it with some dogs, and some dogs do suit a good kibble better. But for the most, I'm yet to. No, I know one of my shepherds that I work with, the raw diet doesn't suit. But you take Vito now, he's the big daddy of my pack, and he has really bad skin issues. If he was to have a single piece of kibble, I can guarantee you that dog's having like an ear infection where he scratched it so much he's bleeding within 48 hours. Like, he reacts really bad. He looks all dusty. He just looks terrible, to be honest. He's a black dog, yeah, so you really notice it. And I got him off the kibble, got him on the raw diet, predominantly organ meats, lots of cartilage, lots of bones, lots of bone marrow, of course, as well.
So just like raw meat, raw organs, bones, just like as it comes straight out of the butcher.
If you can, like, I'd like buy him a whole rabbit, like guts and all, like everything on it.
Yeah.
Give it to him. And 6 to 7 weeks into him having that diet, like, he was just looking so sleek. His eyes were all bright. He's just like lively. He's moving around. He's an older dog, so like you can see the inflammation in his movement. Like, I'm having a week off now, and I if I go back and he's eaten something within this week, I'll know just to look at him. Like, I'm that aware of him.
Behaviour's different as well.
Yeah, literally, like, gets up and he's like sluggish, and you'll see a little bit of a limp, and he's slow, and the eyes are dropped, and he looks a bit dusty. But when he's on raw, he looks like an apex predator.
Yeah.
He looks so clean and beautiful.
What's in the kibble?
I think it's dehydrated meats, grain. No, not if you get a good one, it will never be grains. But lots of potatoes, vegetables, fish oils.
Yeah,
depends on the kibble.
Yeah,
it all depends on the kibble.
All different sorts.
But look, this is the thing with anything though, is if for anyone who is interested to do solely a raw diet with your dog, is if you do go just down the route of raw food, the time where they might nick something off the table, or a family member gives them something, it will wreck them. So you do have to, I don't believe that going like wholeheartedly down one route is good either, because I think it can amplify
any intolerances. Yeah.
So like, that's not to say that I'll chuck Vito or Biggie things that I know trigger them, but if we've got a bit of chicken left over on the dinner and it's got gravy on, it's like, okay, the gravy might not be ideal, but he's okay with it. But
it's like you'd kind of employ the 80-20 with the dogs.
Yeah. And I think, mate, a lot of that I certainly got from you with Ape is when I moved out, I slowly started taking control of my diet and wanting to follow a more ancestral lifestyle, I suppose, as a whole. And then while I was doing that, I was like, hang on, I'm running around with these beasts, like, what would they naturally be doing? Like, when a wolf kills a deer, it doesn't whip out an oven and start cooking it. Like, it eats it, they tear it open. The alpha male will be, it's actually the alpha females that run the show. The leader will more often than not go for the liver. We choose the nice cuts of muscle meat, and the real predators are the ones that are actually going in and eating the organs. So taking that into account, taking on the nose to tail idea, and just watching what they do out in the wild. And I thought, I'm going to try this with the dogs, and
it's fascinating how they, to me anyway, how they know that, like how they know to go to the organs. Obviously, we know from like scientific testing that that's the most nutrient part of the animal.
Yeah.
But animals seem to know. They just instinctually they go for the organs first.
And like, it's documented within wolves as well that it signifies your place within the hierarchy. Like, there's this fella down this way in Devon somewhere, I forget his name, but he lives with a pack of wolves. And when they were young...
What?
Have you not heard of this bloke?
No.
Well, I know, like, wolf dogs.
No, like legit wolves, mate.
Surely there's...
Not like these pathetic shepherds that I run around with, like actual wolves, mate.
I thought they got hunted out of existence in England or something.
No, it's like within an enclosure. No, your man's not down Dartmoor like running around with wolves. Like he's,
Well, I don't know,
he's
mate.
in an enclosure with these wolves that he's got, and he got them as cubs.
When you say lives with a pack of wolves, I'm imagining a guy like in a cave.
Like, mate, we'll. I'm not gonna get my phone out now, but we'll YouTube him afterwards. The fella's literally like leaning over a deer, like this at the wolves, living, eating with them, like living.
Feral almost.
Fascinating.
He is, yeah. He don't look like he smells too good, I'll tell you that. But he, when they were real young, he would bring a carcass of whatever animal, and he would make a point of lifting the liver and eating it in front of them, which signified to the wolves that, you know, your man's top dog here. He's the one that's got the liver. And I don't know if that's, you know, through nurture as such, or if it's nature that they actually get so hardwired to they smell that liver or smell whatever organ meat it is that they desire, and they understand that this is so valuable that only the leader of the pack here is going to be the one that's going to go and put their chops on it first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I don't really know like where it stems from.
I'd say
but
nature if I was to put money on it.
and a bit
It's
of
just
nurture, and a bit of nurture maybe, you know, because again, if you're
Yeah,
a
of
young
course,
pup
you
and
know.
you just smell the liver, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go over
Blend.
here, and the top dog comes over and starts putting you in your place, and you're like, oh, hang on, this is actually
Cop a
this is
beating
something
for that.
Yeah.
Be
pretty
content
much.
with just some like shitty muscle,
Yeah.
bit of
Bit of an
sirloin.
Achilles.
Yeah, a bit of chuck steak,
Yeah.
no tripe.
Well, they say that, don't they? It's like the old dogs, the ones that are like, you know, the grandfathers of the pack. They're the ones that end up eating all the muscle meat at the end, right?
Yeah. Because they're not the ones that need to go out and, you know, catch more meat. They're not the ones putting in the work. So you need to fuel your real resources, which are the hunters and the leaders.
So I mean, it's the same way that the dogs probably have an instinct to see whether you're stressed or anxious or something like that. I feel like maybe the same thing. You just know what the most nutrient dense part of the body was.
Yeah.
They just got instinct like mad.
Their
Which maybe
levels-
humans did have a while ago, but it's just been dulled with
Yeah,
you know,
they're
modern society as such.
obviously their sense of smell as well is like something that we'll never be able to comprehend. So maybe there's something that within, I don't know, maybe they can literally smell the kind of value, the hierarchy of values around the animal. They like can sniff around it, and there's something that the liver gives off, and they're like, that's clearly the best thing.
Yeah, it's like an additional sense or something, like,
Yeah,
or a heightened sense.
you know, I'm just, you know, thinking out loud here. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me with the way they're. It's the same. Like, I don't know if you guys have it. They seem, you know, there's many of them for me, but I have so many stories of just seeing my dogs like read people, and they're like nose out sniffing, and then they've just turned out to be, you know, someone with a bit of ill intent. And it's like, how did the dog know that? The dog's like reading the body language, sniffing or whatever, and they're like, you know, people say that dogs can smell fear, and I don't know that it's true, but I also don't know that it's not. I think that they can read fear or anxiety or any kind of intention within your body in a way that we can't, but maybe they can also smell it. You know, I'm sure there are things that we give off when we're in different states of mind, you know, whether it's pheromones, hormones, whatever it is, you know. I don't know, but the dogs absolutely pick up on
100%,
things like that. So where that comes from, who knows?
Yeah, it's so fascinating, man. Right, we're at like an hour and 22 now. Should we?
I reckon
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Jay, for anyone who's listening who wants some advice because they've got a dangerous dog, where can they find you?
Instagram at the letter K number 9 Harkin, Harkin. And then my website is k9harkin.com. Please don't contact me if you have a Bichon freeze.
I'll put your links in the show notes anyway.
Yeah, please.
Harry, do you want?
Harry.Williams91 at Harry.Williams91 Instagram. Yeah, give us a follow, please.
Mine's ape_nutrition for your health food and supplements. Drop me a DM on there if you've got any questions about any of our stuff. Website is apenutrition.co.uk. Got a discount code for listeners to the podcast. It's AS10. That'll get you 10% off site wide. And if you're enjoying what you're doing, please, or what we're doing, please subscribe, give it a like.
A review.
Yeah, and give us a review on the podcast apps if you can.
Reviews are very, very important.
Yeah.
Reviews are the most important.
Extremely important.
I cannot say I've given you a review yet, but I feel like I have to now.
No, please don't. No, you've done enough, Jamie.
Well, awesome, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.